What's up, everybody? Thanks for tuning back into another video of this NPTE series. Today, we're going to be talking about how to overcome test anxiety and pass the NPTE. So this is a video I got a lot of requests to do, as many people struggle with anxiety during test taking, either during PT school, studying for boards, studying for a specialty exam. This is something that affects people all across the board. So it's not necessarily something that goes away once you have to stop taking tests in college or PT school. This is something I've struggled with personally. It's something that I have a lot of experience in trying to work through, something I'm still working through. So today with this video, what I hope to do is share my thoughts and strategies of how to improve your mindset going into the NPTE so that you can crush it, and then how to carry over that mindset into practice. So we'll start by talking a little bit about my personal history of test anxiety and failures, because I've had my fair share myself. I failed the CSCS exam portion, practical portion, twice. So I passed the exercise science portion my first try, but I had to sit for this practical portion two more times. And each time I left the testing center, I was absolutely devastated. I failed the NPTE one time, so I had to retake that. I've broken my leg, wrist, clavicle, arm, had surgeries on my back, surgeries on my knee, stress fractures in my foot, stress fractures in my back. Each of these by itself has been what I consider a terrible failure and a big setback in my life. But luckily, I've gotten to a point, having experienced all these failures, that I consider myself fairly desensitized to failure, and I'm able to kind of see it for what it is, and I'm able to move forward. Each one of these setbacks, each one of these failures, hurt tremendously in the moment, and I was really upset with myself in the situations. But now looking back, it's just like a blip in time. It happened, and we've moved on tremendously since. So I went back and I finally passed the CSCS exam. I passed the NPTE. I'm in an orthopedic residency now, and I'm doing a lot of cool things. And none of that would be possible if I would have just stopped after some of these failures and said, I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore. I had some of those thoughts in the moment, but luckily, through the support of those around me, I was able to move forward and continue to progress in a positive way. So I think it's extremely important. The first step in kind of reducing your anxiety in studying for anything like the MPTE or any big test is going to be recognize past success and past successful experiences. So whether that's academically, personally, professionally, think back to some of those times where you've experienced tremendous success, how you felt, what sorts of things you did leading up to it, how'd you prepare, and kind of recognize, build that savings bank of success. One thing that I've read about people doing is having like the success savings account. Basically, what that means is every day before you go to bed, you reflect and think upon a couple successes you've had. And if you do that day after day after day, even if you do it mentally, you can do this writing down on paper or just typing in the notes of your phone. But if you do this every single day, that can help to start to increase your confidence and help you realize that, hey, you have been successful in the past. Make a list of both successes and also failures. And for failures, try and think back to how you felt in the moment versus how you feel about that instance now. And you'll likely realize that you've made those past failures a lot bigger than they actually were. It may have seemed like life or death in the moment, but it turns out it wasn't a big deal at all. And you've been able to move forward and progress tremendously since that initial failure. So realize, failure is not the end of the world. And then for successes, again, give yourself credit for what you've accomplished, because you have accomplished a lot before the NPTE, and you're going to accomplish a lot afterwards as an established clinician. Next thing is to realize you're more than qualified to take this exam. So many of you have been in school for 6 years, 7 years. You've been studying this content for months. You laid out your study plan, you followed it, maybe not perfectly, but for the most part, you stuck to the content. You're able to recognize areas of weakness that you've worked on. You know what areas you're strong in. And this is something you've spent a lot of time thinking about, both during school and if you're studying for boards after graduation. You've put aside a lot of time to make sure that you've mastered this content. Next, you passed your clinicals. You have clinical instructors who believe in you and know that you know this content. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here. You've got faculty who agree that you're in a position to take this exam because you've passed all their exams and you've graduated in some cases. But if that's not enough, I would highly recommend, if you're still having trouble believing in yourself, if you're still experiencing these self-limiting beliefs, try and write down some different affirmations about yourself. These can be like I am statements, like I am qualified to take the NPTE. I have passed all these clinicals. I am a knowledgeable physical therapist and I will help many people throughout my career because I have the skills necessary to do so. You can use these in the future sense, you can use them in the present, but just constantly affirming yourself every day that you are capable of passing this exam and you will do so can go a long ways. If you hear the same things over and over again, you're going to start to believe it. The test prep video I really like on YouTube, it's called Exam Success Meditation, Stay Calm and Deal with Test Taking Nerves. It's by Jason Stevenson's. He's got a really relaxing voice. And I really like the message because it takes you through an actual visualization of taking the exam. So that's actually putting you through more preparation and tricking your brain into thinking you've already experienced something before you've experienced it. So I think that can be an incredibly powerful tool too. That would definitely be worth a try. Next, have a plan. There's absolutely no substitution for putting in the time and putting in the effort to make sure that you're in a good position to actually succeed when you do take the exam. So, a lot of times, this feeling of confidence doesn't come out of nowhere. It comes from hours and hours of preparation. And many of you have already put in those hours of preparation. So, knowing that you've done so and taking practice tests and working through, different exam test prep books, you're in a good spot to take this exam. So, trust the preparation. And that kind of trickles over to my next point. Do work through a test prep book, whether that's score builders, whether that's therapy ed, whether that's another resource. Make sure you're spending time with the content. Make sure you've covered everything that's tested on the exam at least one time through. So that way won't be any major surprises when you do sit for the NPTE. On top of these test prep books, you can also use additional resources to help learn in different ways. So sometimes that can be with videos, sometimes that can be with courses. I'm going to touch on a couple potential resources that you can utilize, and then we'll go from there. The first resource I want to touch on is Picmonic, and this can be a great tool while you're still in PT school or while you're studying for boards. What Picmonic is it's an audio-visual learning system with unforgettable stories and characters to help you remember complex topics and ideas within each major system of the body. So that description is taken right from the website. And what it does is it tries to create, these kind of absurd stories and videos to help things make sure that they stick in your brain. So they're going to be so outlandish that, you're not going to forget these things. You'll have these video stories that you can go back to and think about as you're working through questions on the exam. Other options for test prep resources include the PT final exam. They've got a VIPT course, which will walk you through the entire duration of studying for the NPTE. They've got a 4-week crash course that'll be at the end of 4 weeks leading up to the exam if you just need one final push. A lot of my friends used Final Frontier and had good success, both the first time as well as individuals who retook the exam and passed the second time. And then lastly, study how you studied in PT school. So obviously something worked in PT school to get you where you are now. Continue to use what worked. So whether that was flashcards, whether that was studying with a partner, I know I kind of experimented a little bit with studying with others, but a lot of times I need to have the content locked in here before I go ahead and pass it on or study with someone else. So whatever strategies work for you, continue to utilize them. Don't completely jump ship and try something new because there's no reason, to reinvent the wheel at this point. You're so close to passing the NPTE. Just continue on doing what you've been doing. The last thing I want to talk about is controlling what you can. So there's a lot of ways we can reduce anxiety, and one of them is by just controlling the variables we can and not worrying about the variables that we can't control. So I'm going to talk about a few different variables that you have total control over for the most part. The first is going to be to take plenty of practice tests and take all the PEATs you can. Take them at the same time of day that you plan on taking the actual exam, and take them under the same testing circumstances as well. So shut your phone off, have your food prepared the way that you're going to during the exam, whether that's a snack bar, energy drink, whatever you're going to take and utilize during the actual exam. run through the entire process doing the same thing. The more repetitions you can have under those circumstances, the more comfortable and less anxious you're going to feel when that big day finally rolls around. And furthermore, when you start passing these practice tests and you pass the PEATs, then you're going to have a lot more confidence in knowing, hey, I've done this so many times before. And you're sitting down for the NPTE and it's just like another test. You've done it so many times, it becomes not a big deal at all. Next, schedule your NPTE for the time of day that you test best. So my first time taking the NPTE, I was taking it at 2:30 in the afternoon. Never in my life have I taken exams at 2:30 in the afternoon and thought, hey, I felt really great, had high energy. That's just not me. I'm very much a morning person. So by taking the exam at 2:30 in the afternoon, I set myself up for non-optimal circumstances. So if you can get all your prerequisites taken care of early, so that way you go ahead and you can get the first shot to register for the times you want, the locations you want. You won't have to drive to another state. All these kind of stack the deck in your favor, and in addition, are going to reduce the overall anxiety you feel. Plan the day. We talked a little bit about planning, like what kind of food, what kind of drinks you're going to bring. The next thing is going to be planning out transportation. So how far do you have to drive? How long is it going to take? All that good stuff. The more you've got a plan down for that, again, the more comfortable you're going to feel with how the day is going and that you're prepared to succeed, right? Next, arrive early and familiarize yourself with the test center. Some test centers are actually going to let you do a walkthrough. If you peek in and say, hey, I'm taking my exam, in a week or so, they'll at least let you kind of get a feel for what the facility looks like. Additionally, you can pay for a walkthrough at some test centers, depending on how anxious you are, how comfortable you are. If you've been in a Prometric center before, if not, might not be a bad idea to just pay for the walkthrough so you can go through that exam day experience beforehand. And that can additionally reduce the anxiety. Know yourself and know what it's going to take to put yourself in a good spot to succeed. And then arrive early on exam day, but not too early. Give yourself enough time where you're not rushing. But at the same time, you don't want to get there like, I don't know, an hour and a half, 2 hours early. That's just a little bit overkill. Finally, relax and realize you've given your best effort. Relax once you arrive at the test center. Know that you know this stuff. When you walk out of the test center, just relax and realize you gave your best effort. You studied hard, you had a plan, you executed. Now it's just about, waiting for the week between and eventually getting your passing score and then moving on to practice as a physical therapist. So realize this is a very exciting time. If you're feeling anxious, anxiety and excitement both come from the same areas of the brain. So if you can kind of trick yourself to thinking, okay, I'm actually just really excited to pass this exam, become a PT. If you look at it that way instead of fear, I think you put yourself in a better position. But again, you are so close. Hang in there, study hard, go crush this thing.